Any other comments on how all of this makes sense to you and what you're thinking about, Miranda?
Now that you're recording, I'm like, oh, do I want to share? A lot came up for me. I think it's fun to sit with concepts literally. And I kind of went to this place of really contemplating impurity. And what's beautiful about impurity for me is it invites a process. Because as I, negotiate impure thoughts, I'm inviting a process. Perhaps I need to grieve. Perhaps I need to set boundaries. So it's like impurity in a way for me is almost, I want to celebrate that more because that's the reality. We live in an impure world. We have impure minds, and it's like it invites in me the power, the transformative transmutation power of moving towards purity. So that's, I think a lot about, it's not that things are wrong or not in their right place or pollutant. It's not that. It's for me, it's that, it's not fitting right here. What needs to shift? And how can I clear the way for whatever needs to transform? And I was thinking of, I ended a marriage which was really breathtaking grief. And I took our wedding rings and melted them and transformed that gold ring into a ring for our teenager. And he wore that with such joy. And I didn't think that I could look at that gold and see that come. And it was, so that's sort of how I'm holding space, that everything starts with things in it, and it just invites us to work on them. Yeah.
I so appreciate what you're saying, Miranda, because it is accepting the reality of this world and using all substances in order to generate something beautiful, whether it's love or joy or belonging, as you've created a ring for your teenage son. And what a beautiful example of transforming an experience into something that can be really significant and memorable, and not only the experience but an object too. I'm really inspired by your creativity in how you approach that, and really find it remarkable to hear your story. Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to what we've been talking about? Yes, Ren.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is Desi. So I'm a creative person and I have many tools. Oh, and this is Krishna. Oh, they're attacking me because mommy is leading a workshop. So I have many tools and much material in my workspace. And when my father passes, he's going to pass on to me many more tools and workspace. And I was thinking about how he has had tools for 30 and 40 years, and those tools I won't need. Some of them I won't need. So to navigate how to be honorable to him, to his need to hoard, for lack of a better word, and honor the gift that he's given me. And because the mechanical aptitude that I have, I got from him. So yeah, I like the idea of bringing up Marie Kondo's thank you. But I also struggle with, I'm happy with my workspace and I have many more tools that I can use at any one time, but I do come back to using those tools. And I want more tools that make things easier. So it's like, oh, yeah.
So there's two things I hear in what you're saying. One is how to know if the usefulness of a thing is still needed. You know, how to know whether to keep something because it's still useful to you. And to understand the difference between that and hoarding or grasping or holding on. And that's not something I think I can answer. It's just a question we all have to ask ourselves, because we all do that. We hold on to items, whether it's clothes or decorations or photos or letters or cards, or we hold on to things thinking we might use it at some point. And at some point, it's helpful to actually ask the question, have I used it? Am I going to use it? Is this still useful for me? And is it worth keeping? But I also heard something else, which I've heard in two other people talking about this, how to honor items that are passed on from our parents or other people who are significant, how to honor the act of generosity without having to hold the items and when we might not need it or when we might not want it in our space. And, you know, I think I'm really inspired by Miranda. I think there might be really creative solutions to that question. You know, how can you honor the act of generosity and honor the person without having to hold on to the item? And I think when we think about, we often think, I'm honoring the person by keeping the item. We make that association. I think there might be, if we look more creatively and broadly, there might be other ways to honor the person, to honor the act of generosity without assuming that it means keeping the object or item that was given to us. So I just wanted to put that out there. If I have time, I'll tell a story and dream that I have as it relates to that, but I want to give everyone a chance to speak. Kay, Akiko, Kathy, and yeah, great idea, Suzanne, to pass it on. I like your comment in the chat, Susan. I see we have lots of people who love pet companions in this circle, which is great. Akiko, Kay, or Kathy, anything you'd like to say or add? Or any thoughts on what we've been talking about? Okay, so maybe I will share my story and then we can go on a break and we'll regroup after. I inherited dozens of saris from my grandmother. So my grandmother wore saris probably every day when she was healthy, and she would go to the mosque every day, and she had a closet full of saris, and then I inherited some, and many of these sari fabrics were out of date. The colors were out of date, the patterns were out of date, and yet I really wanted to honor my grandmother, to remember her, to have an object to remember her. But I didn't really know what to do, and I didn't want to put these saris in a box and put them in a closet and not look at them. That didn't felt like it was the right way of honoring it. So I had heard of a friend of mine who, her mother is an artist, and her mother would go to thrift stores and buy bed sheets, and she would tear the bed sheets into little strips, and she would tie the strips together, and she would crochet baskets. And I was so impressed by the creativity of that. I asked her, I said, would you be able to crochet a basket out of sari fabric? And she said, oh, sure, I'll try. And she crocheted a basket out of my grandmother's saris. And I have this beautiful object that is something that I really treasure, that I think of my grandmother every time I see it. And it's not the original form of the sari. It's something entirely different. And it's similar to what Miranda did. It's taking an object and transforming it into something that really is meaningful to you personally. So I have a dream that I will be able to travel to the birthplace of my parents, which is on the continent of Africa, in East Africa. And I will be able to find a woman's collective that will be able to crochet sari fabrics and crochet baskets, and upcycle saris for people in the Indian community who might inherit saris from their grandmothers or mothers and want to make them into objects that are more meaningful. So I thought I would share that story just because it came up that one of the things that we're thinking about is how to honor objects that are given to us, and at the same time maintain space that's really helps us be clear in owning our own space and not feeling cluttered in our space. I'm glad you liked that story. Super. Jackie, thank you for joining. Glad you could make it. We had just finished the slideshow on purity. We were talking about internal purity, external purity, and different ways we can engage in purification practices. What I'd like to do is to take a 10-minute break. You can stretch, walk around, look out the window, give your eyes a little bit of a break, grab a warm drink, and let's meet back at 3:10, and we'll do a little summary and wrap up of our session today. Sound good? Super. um, we've been speaking about purity, speaking about the practice of yoga as a purification practice, how it purifies our body physically, how the breathing also helps to purify us on a energetic level in terms of the subtle body, and how we can commit to purification practices, whether it's spending time in nature or cleaning and decluttering our homes. So what I'd like to hear from each of you is, over today and over the next 4 days, what is something small, one small step you can make in a spirit of cultivating purity? And I'll start with myself. Since these beautiful boys came into our lives, Desi and Krishna, who are our pet companions, my husband and I have engaged in reorganizing, kitty-proofing our house and reorganizing our space. And more recently, we've, in the last, like around Christmas time, we really did a deep cleanse of certain things, and it's felt so good. So in the next 4 days, today and the next 4 days, I'm going to really ride the wave of that momentum. And I'm going to really make a list of areas and things that I want to declutter, so that I can really keep that momentum going until the end of the year, and really get a little bit more done in terms of our home space. Anything that you can think of, one small step you can make over the next 4 days that will make sense for you.
I have one. My brain is a little foggy. There's a wonderful, I'm pretty sure it's Hawaiian forgiveness practice. And I would like to focus on clearing the toxic clutter, the things that have accumulated over the year, and go through a forgiveness practice of different places. And so I think I'm going to use that forgiveness practice as my clearing ritual.
Miranda, is that the one? Thank you. I love you. Please forgive me. That's a beautiful, beautiful practice. I've used it myself, and really such a powerful one. Simple and powerful practice. Beautiful. Anyone else? One small thing that you can do over the next 4 days. Sean.
I want to focus on my mind and the thoughts. I tend to be negative and hard on myself and others, so I want to work on that.
Great. So learning to be more compassionate with yourself, and knowing that that will help you be more compassionate with the people around you.
Yes.
Beautiful. Suzanne.
I'm going to work on my patience. I tend to race around a lot and try to do too many things. So sometimes I'm not very patient with myself. And sometimes I don't always make decisions. Like I think from here on, like I need to go with the flow, but I need to just listen and just give myself time and not rush into either communicating or doing, just waiting, listening, and see if it gels and it gets into that flow. And if it feels good, then I'll do it, but not right away, because I need to work on that patience. Yeah.
So slowing down the response time, so that what you commit to is really congruent with what makes sense for you. Fantastic. I like that. Very nice. Great, great answers, all of you. What else? What is one small step that you can do today and over the next 4 days? Susan.
I am decluttering my pantry because that was already on my list. So I feel like I can't use that one because that's cheating because I'm already doing it. I have people coming to stay in my house in February while I go away. So they're going to come and look after my pets. And when I open the pantry door, it's just chaos. And I think I cannot turn my house over to other people and have them have to deal with that. So that's why I'm doing it, which is, you know, but I think the one from today that really, really struck home for me was the thinking more about mental inputs and what you're allowing to come into your brain, because I have the radio on or I have the TV on. There's always something on, which is funny when I think about what I said about the visual. I want my visual space to be very decluttered, but I'm not very often comfortable in a sound space that is uncluttered. So I think that would be a great thing to do for me. Turn off the radio and the TV for 4 days.
I like it. I know Kathy is smiling because she's had experience doing that on a retreat like this. Kathy, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, hi there. I have a lot of clutter. I could even show some of it to you. I think though, I've worked with FAR before, so I'm not going to go on about my clutter. I think it is good to set goals and like make a list. So that way you have a tangible item rather than just having it all in your brain. Like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed. But what I want to say is that, yeah, I think it's very important also to clear the psychological clutter. Like I just came from spending some time with people I consider quite negative. And I felt like I was calling my parents, well, people on the way home in the taxi. And I was just like, there was just so much negative energy, you know, and I feel that I don't really like, I think that's important to, you know, while you're decluttering your closet, like my mental closet, I'm going to start, I think, with that. I thought maybe I'll write down not few, but the positive experiences I had over Christmas. And then maybe even record. I always feel like the negative ones stick more in my mind so that I have a better sense of what it is that I want to do rather than feeling like I'm just doing things for other people and not getting, you know, if I know I reflect too much on the negative, but just to sort of clear that time period and then be okay. I wrote about that in my journal, and then let's psychologically just like 1 year on New Year's Eve, my friends and I wrote down things we didn't like and we burned it on her balcony of her apartment in Toronto, which I'm sure wasn't probably something the neighbors approved of, but I found that quite cathartic. So I'm not going to burn anything here just because my neighbors probably wouldn't like that, but just to write it down and then just kind of like a cloud, like you say, just like let it disperse.
I love what you're talking about. You know, I think it reminds me of Julia Cameron is the author of The Artist's Way, and she recommends this practice called the morning pages, where you get up and you just write stream of consciousness. And it's actually a way of cleansing your psyche so that you can then start your day in a really clear way. And writing, just as Kathy is mentioning, writing and journaling about an experience can also help to bring closure mentally. You know, if you've had you were spending time with a family and there was some dysfunction and it's still swimming around in your mind, and then you journal about it, it can be a way for you to say, okay, that's done now. You know, and the act of writing is a powerful way of engaging the neurons and synapses in our brains, engaging the wiring in a really conscious way. Suzanne, and I know Janice also wants to say something. Yes.
I just wanted to share that, like, I know that in Manitoba, some traditional practices have been coming back. And one of the ones is a full moon ceremony for women. And so like, it'll be a sacred fire on the full moon. And it's amazing because what happens is you could write something and it just, you can burn it. women are being invited to take it to that sacred fire and just send it off. And it's really quite therapeutic, to be honest. I just wanted to share that practice because it kind of ties in with what we're talking about. Not only is there the writing part of it, but sometimes there's practices that we can do that actually will help us visually see, like that somatic work that like yoga that's helping people. Yeah. Anyway, I just want to share that.
Love it. So appreciate it. Fire and sacred fire practices are so powerful. So powerful. Thank you for sharing. I so appreciate that. Yes, that's beautiful that it's coming back and being available for people to really be able to let go psychically of the clutter in our minds. I want to just Janice, before you say anything, I just want to come back to what Susan mentioned about the soundscape being decluttered. I really think that's a wonderful idea of taking a break from radio and news, even if it's just dedicating the first 2 hours of your day to be decluttered in terms of the sounds that you take in. And, it's helpful to experiment, to run an experiment with a limited duration. So maybe this experiment is 5 days. Maybe you run an experiment for 2 weeks or a month, and then to journal throughout the process and at the end of the process, so that you're actually documenting the differences you notice. Like, is there a difference? Do I feel better? Am I missing it? Was there a craving for it at the beginning? So just something that you can think about as you engage in decluttering your soundscape. Wonderful, wonderful practice. And I think you will notice a difference. And I'm so curious to hear about what your experience will be on January 1st when you've done that. Janice, would love to hear from you.
I haven't done yoga for about a year, and last night was spectacular. The yoga was amazing. It was gentle and eased me back, and I didn't want to listen to any news or read. I just wanted to carry that feeling with me and go to bed. And I thought, my one small thing is, I noticed the impact that the yoga had, and I need, like I had mentioned, I need to put yoga back in my life, and I actually want it every day in my life. So that's my one thing. One thing amongst other things, but my one big thing that I think is the most important is to put it back in my daily practice. Yeah.
Beautiful. And we have Suzanne, who shared her example yesterday at the opening circle, that she does yoga daily. She rolls out of bed and onto her mat. And even if on Friday it shortens to only 10 minutes, it's still a part of her life. And so I'm so glad that we can all be examples for each other here, and love that that's your intention and goal. Jackie?
I could pick many cupboards to declutter, but I will pick the one under my kitchen sink because I'm sort of in a similar boat to Susan, that people are going to be coming into my home while I'm away. So that is the one I will pick first.
Wonderful. Love it. Super. Wonderful thing to do for yourself and for your guests.
Could I share one more thing that was inspired by that podcast?
Yes.
I would lay in bed and I listened to it, and I'm not really a cell phone addict. but I notice when I parcel things, you know, my laptop is for work and this is for that. And so after that podcast, I went through and I said, what's the purpose of my phone? It's to talk to my son, it's to text my friends, it's to be available for emergency, it's to have a calendar. So I went through and I deleted every single app. And it was really amazing, the energy, like over the next 45 minutes, how I noticed my body would turn to the phone, but because I'd taken those off, it just wasn't an option. So it was very simple, but very powerful. Like, okay, what's the purpose? So I guess, you know, I'm just thinking, what are there tools in my life I might want to look at that way? Am I using the tool in a way I want to be using it? Yeah.
Brilliant. I love your example of really being intentional, conscious, and strategic and decluttering the phone so that you're using it for the way that you want to use it and strictly in that way. Beautiful. I love that. Thank you. Akiko.
Hi. I would like to work on purification. I had that in my mind for quite some time, and that's part of Japanese ritual that we do deep cleaning at the end of the year, which I haven't done it for decades since I left Japan. So I'm gonna work on that, and yeah, welcoming New Year that way. That'd be awesome.
Akiko, I remembered that it is a part of Japanese culture to do that, to do cleaning at the end of the year. Can you speak a little bit about it as a cultural phenomena and a little bit about what it looks like and how it looked like for you when you lived in Japan?
When I lived in Japan, it was, well, my parents, or my mom is the one, because my dad often at work. So yeah, she put at work or even at the school at the end of the year, we did have a huge cleanup because we didn't have a custodian. I mean, we did have a custodian, but custodian's work is more likely fixing things, not cleaning. So as students, we have to do cleaning every single day at the end of the year, the end of the day, and at the end of the year was a big cleanup. So we had to wax the floor and, you know, cleaning the windows and all that. So so at home, my mom put us work. So like, again, same thing, like deep cleaning in the kitchen, most likely, cleaning the windows, and so that we can purify the space to upcoming New Year. So yeah, we have a pure space or that kind of thing that, yeah, welcoming New Year.
Mhm. You know, I also, what you're saying also reminds me of how I heard a story of a monk who decided to open up a business doing window washing. And the reason is, you know, cleaning in spiritual traditions is a spiritual practice. It is a practice to attend to your altar and keep it clean. It is a spiritual practice to do any kind of cleaning. And part of the reason is it is a way of inviting benevolent energies into our homes. We keep our space clear and clean and decluttered as a way of welcoming benevolent energies to come and live with us and to make our home a hospitable and friendly and welcoming environment. So in some Eastern traditions where you have an altar and you have incense, you are offering fragrance, you are offering food, you might be offering other things of the senses like a bell or something that makes sounds. you're offering these things to the spirits that are here on your behalf. And you're particularly saying, please come into my home. Be with me in my home, that, you know, be with me in my relationships, be with me in my cooking, be with me in all that I do here inside my home. So I love cleaning because I think of it as a way of making my home hospitable, not only for guests who might visit me, but for the benevolent Buddhas, the angels, and the spirit guides who walk with me, for them to really feel comfortable in my physical space. Monica or Kay, any thoughts that you'd like to contribute about what you feel inspired to do over the next 4 days?
Well, I'm moved to tears about the cleaning and the invitation for the spiritual world, because I feel like I do that for my Waldorf kindergarten because I work from home, but you're helping me raise it to another vibration. But I also notice when it comes to like the other part of my home, I don't raise it as high. I always do it for the children, but I don't necessarily do it for me. And so that desire to deepen my self-love and my self-compassion is, I can feel the calling for it. And I think this it was really lovely to listen about the Japanese culture, because I didn't know that. And it's so interesting because we lost power here for 3 days in a row, and then I had to take off and go spend time with my elderly parents. And I just got home late last night, and my place is so dirty and upside down. And I feel this strong need to just clean and organize as much as I can. And it just makes sense. This is a really beautiful way to clean up the last few months, bring in the new year, start fresh, reset. That really resonates with me.
Beautiful, beautiful. You know, Monica, sometimes when I want to invite a higher attitude or vibration into my mind as I engage in something that's mundane, like cooking or cleaning, it can be as simple as lighting a candle before I engage in the activity, just to remind me that
Mhm.
this is sacred what I'm doing.
Mhm. Thank you. I think I'm going to try that.
Yeah. Kay, anything that you'd like to say? And Suzanne, I like what you wrote here in the chat. The more we clear our physical and spiritual space, the more our children and families and all our relations will benefit. Kay, anything you want to mention?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, super. Well, I really feel inspired by all of you and all of the things that you're inspired to do today and over the next 4 days. And, you know, we're here to support each other and hold each other accountable, and also be gentle and compassionate and patient with ourselves and each other. So I hope that you will enjoy the rest of your time today, that you'll have a different set of eyes with which to engage in the rest of your activities that follow. And I look forward to seeing you at Yoga for Sleep tonight at 8:45. It's a little bit later, so 8:45 to 9:30. And Miranda, if you can't make it, I will send you a video that you can do a little bit earlier so that you can get an early to bed. Thank you all for coming, and hopefully we'll see you tonight. If you have any questions, you're welcome to stay on and we can chat individually.
Thank you.
Could you send the name of the book? I had a trouble with the, or just